Let's go ahead and get started. Thanks everybody for joining us on this Battery Storage 101 presentation. I have Jody Finver here with us from our Florida program, and she's going to be doing the presentation today. I'll be your moderator. Again, my name is Corey Ramsden. If you have any questions for us, use the Q&A feature at the bottom there, and we will answer them as we go. And with that, I will turn it over to you, Jody.
Thank you so much, Corey, and thank you everybody for tuning in today to the fabulous world of solar and storage. Today, we're going to be going over a lot of information, but nothing that is going to be too complex or complicated. This is just to give you a general sense of how solar and battery backup can work together. As Corey said, I'm Jody Finver. I'm the South Florida Program Coordinator for Solar United Neighbors. So everything that is like Palm Beach County and down across the state of Florida is my territory. And battery backup is a huge conversation that people like to have down here, especially during hurricane season. So what we will be going over is just the basics of solar plus storage. If you are interested in how solar works, like a Solar 101, feel free to tune in or visit any of our Florida Open Co-op web pages, and you can watch a webinar about solar and storage, which will give you just the basics of solar, how co-ops work, and some solar economics. So with this presentation, we're talking about what happens when the grid goes down, because these are grid-tied solar arrays. When the grid goes down, panels are going to shut off automatically. It's a safety mechanism. It's not an evil conspiracy from utility companies. If you want an array to function during a grid outage, you need special inverters or you need battery backup, because we do not want to be feeding live electricity into the grid while there are utility workers out there restoring power to the neighborhoods, because you can electrocute them. So there has been lots of talk about solar and storage from our organization, from solar installers, and lots of press. From Tesla and LG Chem, and all the news about municipalities looking to go solar and storage. So what we're going to talk about is just what this means to you as a homeowner. So you might want storage if you live in a community where you're the last ones to get your power restored during an outage, or if you suffer from frequent utility outages throughout the month, or you're looking for critical loads like your well pumps or medical equipment, or just like a small AC system, whatever it is that you're looking for to offset in your house, or you're just a prepper and you want to be ready for the next storm that comes your way. This presentation is broken into 3 parts. We're going to talk about the technology, we're going to talk some solar battery economics, and we're going to talk a little bit about our work. If you have questions along the way, feel free to ask them. Corey's and I will do our best to answer them. And there'll also be time at the end of a section as well to have some Q&A. So getting into the basics and technology. What we talk about generally in our Solar 101 information sessions is about net metering and how you are earning kilowatt hours and producing kilowatt hours, and it's a 1-to-1 ratio with most municipalities, and that is what is financially compensating you and lowering your electric bill. When the grid goes down, there is no net metering. So you're not having that financial compensation of the kilowatt hour for 1 kilowatt hour. What you're having is power that is going into your battery system, and then it's going into your house. Batteries are very similar to generators in that they will provide electricity to your home in the event of an outage. The way that storage is sized, there's a difference between energy and power. Energy that a battery has is the amount of work that it can do over a period of time, and that is measured in kilowatt hours. Power is the maximum work that it can do at any given time, and it's measured in kilowatts. So you can hear installers talk about the size of a system, and that is going to be, they'll tell you in kilowatts, and then the amount that it is going to be producing over any point in time is going to be in kilowatt hours. What we're powering are going to be critical loads, and I talk about this a lot in our information sessions. A critical load is going to be just the most important things that you need to function during a grid outage. There are some battery manufacturers out there that are going to say, we can do your entire house, and that might be a possibility, but we'll always recommend that people look at it in terms of critical loads. What are the most important things that you need powered during the event of an outage? So if you picture along with this image here, you're going to have your panels on your roof, and then you're going to see in number 2 is going to be your solar and your battery or inverter. And then you're going to see the battery storage. You're going to see a critical load sub panel, and usually an automatic transfer switch, so that when the grid goes down, the system will know, and it will go straight to battery backup. That is going to be sized to what you're able to offset, and as well as your budget. This is an image of my own house. I got battery backup last year, and we have a 10.5 kilowatt hour battery system, and it is tied to certain critical loads. It doesn't do our entire house. We're not tying off to our central air conditioner or to a giant hot water heater or to a dryer, because those are going to suck out the battery life very quickly. So what we have is we're tied to a mini split that is in our bedroom, and to the master bedroom, to our refrigerator, because the most important thing for us is that we want the food to stay fresh during an outage and not have any spoilage. It opens our driveway gate, and it also lets the pool pump work, and our TV and modem. So during the outage, we'll have 8 things that are functioning in our house seamlessly, and we've tested this a couple of times to do a trial run, and we're able to have AC. I'm able to cook in my kitchen, I'm able to watch television and use the internet. We're not doing the main AC across the entire house, and we aren't doing lights and things on the other house. We can run an extension cord and light things up. But that again is what a critical home load is, and it will tie into a sub panel. As an example, if you considered Mr. Johnson here, and he loses power in his house from the utility company, and he has a solar array, and with that, he's got a 10 kilowatt hour battery system. With that, he is allowing himself, if he doesn't have any solar working with that, that battery is going to give him 1 day's worth of power. That will do his refrigerator, a microwave, the washer, lights, your cable modem, a window AC, or a mini split, or even one of those portable air conditioners that you just have travel around with you and give you cool air where you need it. What it's not going to be functioning, again, is his stove, a dryer, or an electric hot water heater. You can have your solar array tie off to a solar hot water system if you have one of those hybrid systems that has an electrical component to it, and that is something that you would want to discuss with a solar installer. What you should figure with the critical load is that the critical load, it's just like my phone right here. And that is because here it is, a battery. And the heavier that the load is that you're putting on it, the faster it's going to drain. So if you're doing some texting, it's not going to be draining the battery as quickly. But if you are streaming the first season of Dead to Me on Netflix, it's going to drain the battery very quickly. So we say, be very considerate to what you want to be tying into. Again, this is just to get you through a storm. We're not urban homesteaders that are just completely disconnecting from the grid. This is just to get you through an outage. Now, how solar works with a storage system is that it's going to be charging your batteries for you to be using later in time. And the grid can also be charging the batteries. You would discuss with the installer how you want this to be charging and how it should be sending energy into it and feeding your battery. You can use small amounts from the grid or your solar array to keep the batteries topped off, and the batteries are going to kick in automatically during a grid outage. connecting your batteries to solar, there are two different ways that this can be working. The first is going to be DC coupled and the second is going to be AC coupled. So DC coupled is if you are using a central inverter system, and it is often called a hybrid inverter or just a battery compatible inverter. So you've got your solar panels here and it's going to go into one large cabinet or system, and with that you're going to see there's the solar and the battery inverter, and then there's the battery itself. So this can take remember when solar is being hit by direct sunlight, it's knocking electrons free, it's creating electricity in direct current, and it has to go through an inverter of some sort to turn into alternating current to use in your house. When you have a hybrid system or a battery compatible inverter, that DC electricity is going to go in and it's either going to turn into AC and go straight into your critical load panel or into your house if the grid is working, or if the grid is down, that DC electricity is going to go into the battery, it's going to feed the battery, and then the electricity is going to come out of the battery and go through that inverter, turn into AC. It's going to go into your critical load subpanel and then into your house. So the sun is hitting the panels, it goes into this full system, and it's either going to, the inverter is going to know whether it's on the grid or off the grid. If it's on the grid, it's going to turn the electricity into AC and it's going to go into your house, into your panel, and your house will take what it needs. If you're off grid, it's going to go into the inverter, down into the battery, and then come back out as AC and then go into your critical subload panel. If you are AC coupled, this is what we often see in retrofitting, where you have just a general inverter or you have microinverters up on your roof. So the panels are creating electricity in DC and they're going to go through the inverter, whether it's a microinverter up on your roof or a central inverter. From there, it is going to go down into a separate system. It's going to be a separate ancillary inverter that you have, and that inverter is going to it's going to go from DC, it'll go into AC, and then it's going to go back into the separate inverter and turn back into DC so that it can charge a battery. Then it's going to come back out and turn into AC and go into your critical load subpanel. So in one system, you're going to have the inverter, the battery compatible or hybrid inverter or an island inverter. That inverter is going to be able to turn DC into AC for your house, or it's going to be able to do DC, go into a battery, come back out as AC, go into your house. With an AC coupled system, it will turn from DC into AC, then it's going to have to turn back into DC to work the batteries, then it's going to come back out as AC and go into a critical load subpanel. So what we tend to say is that with a DC coupled system, your solar and your battery system are hugging. And with an AC coupled system, they are kind of waving at each other from across the hall because it's going to turn from DC into AC. It's going to have to go back into DC to charge the batteries and then get inverted into AC again. And if you have any questions, need any technical, Corey is there to answer any questions that you might have, or he can shout them out to me and I'll be happy to answer them. Again, all of this, when this happens, whether it is DC coupled or it is AC coupled, it's going to happen seamlessly when the grid goes down. A DC coupled system usually happens when somebody is going solar and getting battery backup at the same exact time. With AC coupled, it's often that somebody is doing a retrofit. They've gone solar and they have, whether it's a Sunny Boy inverter or a regular old Solar Edge inverter or even like any kind of microinverter, they're going to get battery backup later, and that will require an additional inverter to turn the AC back into DC so that it can charge the batteries, and then it's going to turn that DC into AC so that it can go into the critical load subpanel. Now, there are a bunch of different batteries that are out on the market. The old tried and true are going to be the lead acid batteries. That's like when people, especially down in South Florida, boaters, who have marine batteries or lead acid batteries, who are well acquainted of having a little solar array and then battery backup to use in the evenings. There is, when you're using a lead acid battery, you're going to be using more of them. There's maintenance that's required, and on all of the little solenoids and the connectors, there is a slow energy discharge on them. You have to make sure that you have space to be able to install them. They have a shorter lifespan, and they're less usable over time, but they are going to be a lower price point. You can also have like lithium ion batteries. Lithium ion batteries are going to be what you see in the news lately, especially if people are always asking us about Tesla Powerwalls, Tesla Powerwalls. That's a lithium ion battery. So it's going to cost you more out of pocket. It's going to last you longer over time. It doesn't use a lot of space, and there are new products that are coming out onto the market and new companies that are making lithium ion batteries. But then there are even newer applications that are coming out, and people are starting to investigate like salt batteries and different, even some marine cell batteries. So you can talk to an installer and you decide whatever works best for your budget and the space that you have available in your home. If you are thinking of getting lead acid batteries, consider that you need to have space for them, and there's going to be, you want to make sure that the room that it's in is, has thermal regulated, that it isn't going to be getting too hot in the area. A battery is, similar to what you have in your car, that it's going to be like a shoebox, but you're going to have multiple ones of them, just like you see in the picture. With a lithium ion battery, it can be a slim battery that is mounted on the side of a wall, or it's going to be in a garage or a carport. The one that I have in my house is a larger system, a larger cabinet, and it is in direct full sunlight throughout the day because we don't have a carport or a garage or any place to put one inside the house. Temperature control, as I was saying about the environment, with a lead acid battery, you want a temperature between 50 and 80 degrees. So you don't want extreme heats. You're not going to be installing this outside in a backyard in sunny South Florida, because chances are they're just going to overheat. With a lithium ion battery, they'll say that it's best to go like nothing exceeding like 100 degrees, though some can work in higher depending on the composition of that lithium ion battery. They can be installed outdoors, preferably in a shaded area, and they want a stable climate. The lead acid is going to require just more attention to the environment and the temperature that it's going to be set up in. As far as different equipment, the operation and the maintenance on them, if you were looking at a Powerwall, it's 10 years warranty and unlimited cycles on them. Or an LG Chem, it's going to have the same setup. A Sonnen Eco or a simplified battery are going to give you like 10 years or 10,000 cycles. That's like many, 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 many years down the line. The N-phase storage that's coming out is 10-phase or 7,300 full cycles. And then there are like the smaller, the lead acid batteries. That's going to be about 2 to 5 years that you're going to have for them running. And just so you have a better idea, when I say many, many years to come, on a 10,000 cycle battery, we're talking 27 years. So the lifetime of your solar array is going to be pretty much a lifetime of your battery system. Things that you'll want to be considering is going to be like insurance, your permitting, any utility requirements. Look into the installer qualifications. How many batteries have they installed and what products have they installed? What equipment is available, and just any general retrofitting. So there are some municipalities that just aren't up to speed on battery installations. So it is a burgeoning new market, especially down in South Florida. I was the first house with battery backup of the type of battery that I have. So it was pretty fun having it inspected by the city. And if you have an electric car, there's something that you can also consider, is that in the future, you might be able to be using that EV as a temporary backup generator, but you definitely want to be doing your research into it. That is basic overall solar and battery technology. Do we have any questions that have come through, Corey?
We just had one question, which I answered, but I'll just repeat it here for other folks, which was, do you need to exercise the batteries like you would exercise a generator? And the answer is, you don't need to exercise them for maintenance purposes, but it is a good idea to test periodically to make sure your system is functioning in the event of an outage. And that's something that your installer can help you walk through when your system is installed, is how to test that.
And besides the fact that it's just good practice, it's also fun to give it a trial run. And it is a great way to talk with your neighbors about getting solar and storage, especially if you have neighbors that have those giant Generac battery or giant Generac generators that go off in the event. We have 3 surrounding us in our neighborhood, and they're quite noisy. So here's a way that you could be testing it out and go, look, you couldn't even hear ours. It was completely silent, and we just got through completely fine. The mayor of South Miami, Phil Stoddard, did a week-long test of the batteries that he had at his house, and you can go to, I think it's SoMe Solar. I'll try to find that website for you, but he blogged his entire week of being off-grid. So we're going to move into just the generals on some solar economics. And the big takeaway here is just that, you know, when you're doing solar and you're getting storage as a backup, you've got immediate backup power. It could be reducing the overall costs later down the line instead of retrofitting, and it can be eligible for the 30% federal tax credit that is in place through the end of the year. Remember, next year it's going to be dropping down to 26%, and then 22% the following year, and then it's gone. If you're doing it later in time, then you might be waiting for prices to be falling, or you're doing like an AC coupled or a retrofit. You might have to replace the inverter, or you might have to add an additional inverter in order to take the AC, turn it back into that DC to charge the battery, and then have it turn back into AC to work in your house. Now, there's some uncertainty about the eligibility for solar when you're doing a battery backup later in time, especially with an AC coupled system. The big nutshell that you have to take away is just that if the array is being charged 100% from, if the array is 100% charging that battery, it should qualify for the federal tax credit, but it is something that you're going to want to ask an accountant and get a real professional giving you an accounting opinion on it. As we were talking about with the federal tax credit, so if it is 100% charged by a solar array, it should qualify for the 30% federal tax credit. If you're using this and it's being charged by the solar array and it's also being charged by the grid, if at least 75% of it is being charged by the array, it can be eligible for a portion of the tax credit. If it's less than 75%, then it's ineligible. Now, when you're having a battery installed in your house, and you're speaking to the installer, they can set the inverter to only charge from the array, only when the grid goes down, or they can say to just charge it and top it off from the grid. You would let them know. In our house, when we did it, we had it set that it would only charge from the array, and we submitted that paperwork and put it in this past year with our tax return. But your installer is you want that documentation to be presented to you from the installer. If you are looking in terms of pricing, because this is generally, everybody wants battery backup, and then you start seeing the pricing and you're gonna have to determine what works best for your budget. So you're gonna have your hardware costs, and that's gonna be priced per the kilowatt, and or it can be priced per the kilowatt hour. It's gonna depend on the battery type. And then you're gonna be, oops, let me go back, sorry. Hey, Corey, it's not letting me go back. There we go, now it's going back. So you're gonna have your cost for hardware, you're gonna have the cost for the installation, any kind of permitting that is required, and then any kind of maintenance that is required, especially if you're doing like lead acid batteries, there's gonna be some maintenance on them over time, or if you have to replace the batteries for any reason. Hardware is going to be, when you hear the hardware cost, that's only storage. And within that hardware, they could be talking to you about, if it's an AC coupled system, you're going to be having the other inverter, you're going to be having the battery, there could be a gateway involved, there could be talking to you about an automatic transfer switch that is involved as well, just so you know that these terms might be coming up. When you're talking about installation, that's going to be equipment, the design, it's going to be the permits, the labor, and the inspection overhead. And then you're going to have maintenance involved in it. Are there any questions? Corey, did you answer those questions? Anything you want to shout out?
No, I think we're all set here.
Okay, so some examples of hardware costs. Now, these batteries can be, you can do 6 or 7 Tesla Powerwalls, or you can do 1 lithium ion battery, or you can just have a cabinet full of lead acid batteries. The hardware cost examples, if you're looking at something like 4 kW to 13 kW, with a lithium ion battery, that can range in price anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000, depending on the composition of the lithium ion battery. With a sealed lead acid battery, we're looking at about $2,000 to $6,000 within that sizing range. And again, you're going to talk to an installer. They're going to size the system up to what you have in your solar array, and then also what you have in your wallet. And it's whatever fits best within your budget. The installation costs for a lithium ion battery, if you were looking at 4 kW to 13 kW, that's going to be between $3,000 and $5,000 if you're retrofitting or getting any additional equipment. And then your maintenance is going to be variable depending on what kind of battery it is and what the chemistry is. So if you were pricing something out, you're looking at about $10,000 for a battery, $4,000 if it was installed, and then $1,000 in maintenance. So it could be about $15,000. Every product is going to have different pricing, and they're all going to give you that satisfaction and the confidence that you're going to have power during a grid outage for the critical loads. You would speak to an installer and say, what do you have available? And then work from there with what works best with your budget. Again, to keep in mind your costs when you're estimating this out, and that this is for backup power. This is only going to be valuable to you when the grid is down. So you're not going to see any cost savings and earnings over time. This isn't the same as your solar array paying you and offsetting your electric. This is just something that you're going to use during a grid outage. And that might be incredibly important to you during certain times of the year, like during storm season. If you are somebody that even lived in parts of South Florida where it took 1 to 3 weeks to get your power back. Other things to keep in mind when you lose power, it isn't just that you don't have AC in your house. It's now you have to start thinking about the food that you have in your refrigerator, and if it's gotten spoiled, or if you have to get a new refrigerator, or if you're staying in a hotel over time, or just cleaning up in the event of any kind of floods and stuff like that. This is presuming that you have a basement. We don't have many of them in South Florida. But also to keep life-sustaining medical equipment functioning. Or a well pump if you live down in certain parts of Southwest Florida and you're on well system. What should be included within a proposal is going to be the full cost. You want to know how much is this going to cost you? No hidden costs that are going to creep up down the line. So it's going to be your equipment, your materials, your installation. You're going to want to know what the milestones are for the payments. Get some details on the equipment and what kind of warranties are on the products as well as from the installer. And any kind of maintenance, any kind of plans that are required, any kind of permitting that is required. Get yourself a pricing guarantee, and you want to get information from the installer.
Hey, Jody, can we pause just for a second for a couple questions?
Sure.
We had a few come in here. I answered a couple, but just so folks hear them as well. One person asked about the energy loss between AC coupled and DC coupled. We don't have the exact percentage handy on that in terms of an AC coupled system, but generally speaking, AC coupled systems are going to be less efficient than the DC coupled because of that extra conversion, but it's going to vary by equipment and by battery type somewhat. So that was one. Someone else asked about the 30% tax credit and whether there was a maximum. The tax credit, federal tax credit, does not have a maximum on the installed cost. So the example we have, you can exceed whatever you're seeing on the slides here. It's 30% of the installed cost, assuming it qualifies for 100% of that credit based on what Jody was saying. And then the last question, which we haven't answered yet, is whether battery backup can also be used at night when the sun's not shining. Jody, I'll let you take that one.
Yes, you can turn yourself off the grid and use your battery in the evening. There isn't much incentive to do that, because especially if you're in Miami-Dade County, you're on FPL and you're net metering and you're getting 1 kilowatt hour for 1 kilowatt hour, and the surplus that you're creating is what is credited to your account, and those credits are what you're using in the evening. So if you're not using those credits, they could be rolling over every month, and if there is surplus at the end of the year, it's only being purchased at a wholesale rate of just under 3 cents a kilowatt hour. So there's no real financial incentive to disconnecting yourself from the grid in the evening and using your battery backup. You can do it as testing, but at this point in time, you're not financially incentivized to do it. And if you are setting yourself up for critical loads, then you would be keeping in mind that if you were to disconnect yourself from the grid in the evening and using your battery, you're just getting power from those critical loads. So if you haven't set your entire house up with as many batteries that you need to be using your central AC, to be using your hot water heater, to be using your stove, and the large energy suckers in your house, like a pool pump, then that isn't going to be functioning. That isn't going to be working. So this is, again, battery is just the same as you would be using a natural gas like house generator. You're only using it if you need to use it. I hope that answers your question. Corey, if you have anything additional to add, please definitely do.
Yeah, and just to confirm, Jody covered it, but when there is an outage, your batteries are certainly going to power your home in the daytime and at night. So they will function. You're charging them in the daytime, and at nighttime you're running off of that battery power on that critical loads panel. Yeah. We have one other question, which I think is a good one for folks to keep in mind just as they're shopping around, which is asking about whether you need to size battery backup systems the same way you do for generators for what they call startup loads, or being able to launch a lot of appliances at the same time. The answer is yes. So when Jody talked earlier about energy versus power, one thing your installer is going to do is look at the equipment that you want to run during an outage, and they're going to need to take it into account how much energy or how much power that equipment needs to start up. Some things like refrigerators or other things might take a different amount to start than they will to run on a regular basis. So we want to make sure that that battery bank can actually start up that equipment in the event of an outage. So yes, the short answer is yes, they will need to take that into account for sizing.
Another thing, thank you for answering that, Corey. Another thing to keep in mind is that you can have lots of batteries, which is the kilowatt hours, but the amount of work that it can be doing is going to be dependent on the inverter that is attached to it. So if you have a 10.5 kilowatt hour battery, let's say it has a 7 kilowatt inverter, you're not going to want to go beyond that amount unless you're adding another inverter onto it. And that, again, is something that a solar installer will walk through and explain to you. But that's the section, and you can watch this again just to get more, get yourself more comfortable and acquainted with the difference between energy and power and kilowatts and kilowatt hours. The kilowatt hours is just how much it can hold over a period of time, and the kilowatts is just how much it can give you in those sections. And I hope that I explained it correctly. Again, that is the end of this section. If we don't have any additional questions, I can get into just, the work that Solar United Neighbors has been doing. And with that, I would recommend that you check out our residential storage guide. You can download this from our website and certainly send it to your friends, especially, your neighbors that have whole house generators and really sunny roofs, because there's a wealth of information in the guide. And you can go to solarunitedneighbors.org/learn the issues/solar storage with those hyphens in between them and get more information about solar and storage. And you can download the guide using these links. And then if you are in Miami-Dade County, you're going to go to solarunitedneighbors.org/Miami. We have an open co-op that's there. If you're in Broward, you're going .org/Broward. If you're in Escambia, Santa Rosa, you're going to head to the Escambia, Santa Rosa page. Find a solar co-op that is in your area and sign up. It's free to participate. There's no obligation to go solar through a solar co-op, and you'll just get a lot of information and somebody helping you and giving you unbiased technical support throughout the way. And that is the end of our solar and battery information session. If you have any questions, please ask. If not, thank you so much for tuning in. And I hope that we see your sunny roof in a roof evaluation coming up soon. Corey, I see some questions.
I think we've answered all the questions, but if you're interested in the link for co-ops in all the co-ops in Florida, you can look at the chat window there. I've also pasted it there, made it available for people, and it's in the Q&A window as well.
All right, thank you so much for tuning in today, and we look forward to helping you go solar in the future. And again, I can't stress how, as a solar and battery backup homeowner, the silence and that there are no noxious fumes coming out through the generator in my house, because it's a battery and it's the sunshine that is powering it. It makes an enormity of difference, and that your neighbors can then also, if they don't have battery backup or a generator, they can keep their windows open at night. So thank you very much for tuning in, and we will see you soon.
Thanks, everyone. Just a reminder, we'll also be recording this and posting a recording of it on the website as well, and we'll let you know where that link is so you can share with friends. Thank you very much. Have a great day.